Hi everyone, and welcome back to Liz Sews. This is video 2 in the Lanai wireless bra sew along. In this video, we'll be putting together the bands of our bras, both the cross band and the traditional band. We'll be inserting our cups into those bands, and we'll be finishing the bottom of our bands with Pico elastic. Let's get started.
Now let's get started on the band. First, I'm going to show you how to do it with a single layer bra. We have the cradles cut in a single layer, and the bridge piece is cut in 2 layers with a lighter weight lining and my fashion fabric. The first step I want to do is take my bridge and lay it right sides up and then put my lining on top of it. I'm going to sew up here with 1/4 of an inch at a straight stitch. Then, once that's sewn into place, I want to fold my lining outwards and I want to understitch. And when I understitch, that means I want to sew on the lining side of the fabric again with a straight stitch. Probably about 1/8 of an inch this time. This keeps the lining from flipping over to the outside of the bridge. Now that we've understitched the lining in place, it should tuck away nicely once we flip it to the wrong side of the bridge. Now we're going to attach our 2 side cradle pieces to the bridge. We just want to make sure that the linings and bridge piece are lined up, and then we want to pin our cradle to it with right sides facing together. Now I'm going to bring this over to the machine and sew this with 1/4 of an inch straight stitch along those 2 pinned edges. Once that is attached, we can go ahead and top stitch it down again about 1/8 of an inch away from our original seam line. In this instance, we want to press our seam allowances towards the outer cradle side. It should be where it naturally wants to go. And here's what it looks like once it's been top stitched. Now we can add on our back band pieces. These are the ones cut from PowerNet. I'm going to take the straight edge of the back band piece and align it with the straight edge of my cradle. Make sure that you have that sort of strap extension pointing towards the top of the bra and not towards the bottom. I can't tell you how many times I've made that mistake. I'm going to go ahead and pin that into place on both sides of the cradle with your second one over here, and then sew it with a straight stitch at 1/4 of an inch. And here we have the band sewn. The last step on it is of course going to be to top stitch this down. In my case, the seam allowances look to be wanting to go towards the cup side, so that's where I'm going to let them be. And I'm just going to top stitch this down at about 1/8 of an inch. So now my band is fully complete. The next steps is going to be inserting the cups into the band itself. However, I'm going to switch over to my fully lined bra and show you how to do the crossing band. If you're doing this style of bridge, go ahead and use the title markers down in the timeline as well as the description box to skip ahead to the next part that's relevant to you. So here we have our 2 cradle pieces. I'm doing mine with 2 layers, a layer of tulle and a layer of PowerNet, but it also would work with a single layer as long as it's stretchy. So for instance, if you wanted to do 1 layer of PowerNet, that would work really well for this too. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my 2 bridge pieces. So the bridge ones are the shorter of the 2, and I'm going to overlay them on top of each other. It doesn't matter which one's on top, but whatever one is on top now is going to be opposite from how it'll be once it's finished. So I'm going to line these up like so, and then I'm going to sew with a straight stitch at 1/4 of an inch at the very top of this. Once you've sewn that into place, I'm going to go ahead and flip the top one up, and then I'm going to top stitch all of my seam allowances to that side. Once it's top stitched into place, it looks a little wonky like this, but you can now flip it to the back of the bra, and you can see how we've cleaned up that upper edge, and now the cross is in the opposite direction of the way it was the first time around. So whatever way you want it to look afterwards, you want to do the opposite of it at the beginning. So now I'm going to go ahead and attach my back band pieces to either side of this cradle. I'm going to attach my back band pieces in the same sort of stitch and flip method that we used in the cups of this lined bra. If you're using a single layer, you can just attach it directly on here with a straight stitch at 1/4 inch. So if you're using 2 layers and you want to fully encase your seams, go ahead and turn this to the back side of your bra and align your back band piece with the lining of your cradle. And I want to pin together just the cradle lining to the back band of the bra, like so. Now, sort of roll this up so you can get it out of the way. Sometimes I like to stick a pin in there as well, just to keep it out of the way. So now we're going to do sort of the burrito method. So I'm looking at the inside right now of my fashion fabric. I want to take this and I want to put the right side of my fashion fabric against my back band. So the right sides of my fashion fabric touching my back band. Now I'm going to sew this with 1/4 inch straight stitch along this edge, and I'm going to repeat for the other side. So now our band should look something like this. Next, we're going to go ahead and apply our elastics along the bottom of this side and this side separately. So for this particular view, you want to make sure you're using 3/8 inch elastic along the bottom band. That's what this one has been designed for. So what you want to do is take your bra, you want to look at it right sides facing up. So right now I have the tool facing up, that's how I know it's the right side. And I want to take my elastic. You should have a picot edge. So the picot edge is the one that looks like little bumps or scallops. You want that facing towards the cups. And you want the straight edge of the elastic aligned along the straight edge of the bottom of your bra. You want to sew with the fuzzy portion facing upwards. The particular elastic I'm using is plush on both sides, so it doesn't really matter which way I orient it, but most elastics are going to have a plush side and then a not so plush side. So you want the plush side facing up. So that's how I'm going to align my elastic, and I'm going to take it over to the machine and I'm going to sew with a zigzag stitch as close as I can to the sort of scalloped bumpy edges. I'm going to put just a slight amount of tension on my elastic, not a huge amount, just something like this, to make sure that I'm counteracting any waviness that I might be experiencing from my presser foot. Now the elastic is applied to the outside of the band on both sides. Now we can turn it around to the inside of the bra. And you want to turn your elastic to the inside of your bra, and then you want to sew with a zigzag stitch as close as you can, this time to the straight edge of the elastic. The last step that we need to do on here is to affix these two guys together. So now that both of our elastics are in, we want to align these curved edges of our bridge, and I'm going to pin it to place, and then I'm going to baste it. We needed to make sure that we inserted our elastic before we did this, because otherwise we wouldn't have been able to get up and underneath there. The reason that this bridge uses a 3/8 inch elastic is because if you used the 3/4 elastic like the other bridge or the other cradle, there wouldn't have been enough space to insert your cups after the elastic was already inserted. The bra tool that I'm using is stretching out just slightly, and so I'm making sure that I'm using the lining to know where my true edge is, and I'm going to cut away that excess bra tool later. Okay. So now I can just baste in those two sides of my bridge, and this cradle is done. Now we're going to insert our cups into the frame. This works the same for either of the designs options that you're choosing. So I'm only going to show this once since it's the same regardless. So when we're looking at this, obviously the side that has the power bar is going to be towards the back band, and the other side is going to be what touches the bridge. So what I like to do is make sure they have my cups, make sure I have mirror images of my cups, and then align them which side they're going to be in. And then I'm going to flip this over so I have right sides touching right sides of my cradle, and I want to align so that 1/4 of an inch in, these two are meeting perfectly. So in this case, that means that the neckline edge is going to dip a little bit below the bridge at this cut line here, but at the 1/4 of an inch in mark where we're going to start sewing, they're going to meet absolutely perfectly. And I'm going to pin that into place. And I'm going to do that for both sides of my cups. I always start from my bridge because that's the part that's in the center of your body. It's what everyone's going to see first, and so that's the part that I want to make sure is absolutely perfect. So I'm going to start from my bridge, and then I'm just going to walk it and pin it along that curve. This can be kind of tricky because you're working with two curves going in opposing directions. But just take your time, use lots of pins, and make sure that you don't have any tucks or gathers in there. You want to make sure that it's fitting in pretty smoothly. Now I've gotten to the section where I have that power bar pinned in, so that's why these pins are here. I'm just going to take them out of the cup and make sure I'm going through all of my layers, including my cradle. So bringing this back over to the machine, I want to start with my bridge section, make sure everything is aligned perfectly, and I want to back tack a couple of times here just to make this one sure that this one is really secure. So I'm going to go ahead and repeat this now for the other cup. Just like we did for the first side, I want to make sure and align my bridge first. I want to make sure that is absolutely bang on perfect, and then I'm going to pin outwards from there. So here's what it looks like once both of the cups are put into the bras. So if we turn this around to the inside, the next thing I'm going to do is actually underwire channeling. So even though these bras do not have underwires, we're going to go ahead and still put underwire channeling in there because this is going to stabilize this seam where the cup connects to the band itself. So this is part of the trifecta, you know, of stabilization. We stabilize the neckline here, and we're going to make sure we stabilize the seam down here. This is going to help you get your lift and separation even though we don't have wires in the channeling. You could use seam tape or sort of anything that's non-stretch to stabilize this, but I'm just going to use underwire channeling because I think it's the easiest. And if this is sort of like a practice bra, then it at least gives you some experience putting underwire channeling in. And the underwire channeling is going to go in the same regardless of the bra, so I'm really going to show you on one of them. So this bra is looking really, really white, which is fine, but I think it needs some color. And I had an idea to make this into sort of a Christmas style bra. And so I'm going to use all red elastics with my white bra. And that goes for the underwire channeling as well. So when we're putting the underwire channeling in, we want to attach it to just the seam allowance itself. So I'm looking at the inside of the bra, I'm going to grab the seam allowance with my hands and then sort of make sure and push everything out of the way. So we only want to be sewing through the seam allowance, not any of the cup or the band at all. We're going to take our underwire channeling and we're going to butt it up against the seam line where the cup connects to the band. And this is on the underarm side of the bra, so the side where the back band attaches to. And on that side, we want to drop it down by about 1/2 of an inch. So you don't want to sew it all the way up to the edge. You want to start sewing it about 1/2 of an inch down. And that's because later we're going to put elastic on here and you don't want that excess bulk there. So starting about 1/2 an inch down from the top of the underarm side, we're going to sew our channeling on as close as we can to this edge over here, trying not to sew into any of the bra itself, just attaching it to the seam allowance. So here we can see we have the underwire channels started to be put into both of these bras. I forgot to mention, but when you're sewing it, you want to make sure that your cups are what's facing up on your machine. So that when you have your underwire channeling that sort of folds down, you want it to fold down into the bridge section of the bra and not into the cups. Because if you sew the channeling on with the band facing up, what would happen is the channeling would then push into the cups and change your volume. So for this bra, it's designed that the underwire channeling be attached so that it folds out into the bridge cradle section, if that makes sense. So before I go in and tack down the underwire channeling a second time, I'm going to go ahead and put in my bottom band elastic. So for the cross cup style bra, cross bridge, the elastic has already been put into place, so we don't have to worry about that. But for this guy, we're going to go ahead and put it in now. And we're going to do it in much the same way that we did for the cross cup style. So take your bra, you want to put it right sides up, and then you want to find your plush side of your elastic. So in this one, I have sort of a ridged side, and then I have side that's sort of plush. So I want the plush side facing up, and I want to orient it so that the straight edge of my elastic is aligning with the outer edge of my bra, and the sort of scalloped or bumpy edges are going to be facing towards the top of my bra. So once we have our elastic all organized and sitting the right way, I'm going to take this over to the machine and we're going to sew a zigzag stitch as close as we can to the scalloped edge of the elastic. And so here you can see what it looks like. Hopefully I used a contrasting thread against the elastic, so it might make it a little bit easier for you to see where those zigzag stitches are hitting along that elastic. And of course this is from the outside of the bra. Then we're going to flip it to the inside. If you want to, at this point in time, you can sort of trim away all of this excess material now. Sometimes I do, sometimes I don't. So now looking at the inside of the bra, we want to take our elastic and fold it towards the inside. So if you're doing this correctly, you can double check on the outside to make sure that you have just that little bit of the scalloped edges that are extending beyond the bra on the outside. And then you should see the full width of the elastic on the inside of the bra. And so we're going to go ahead and flip that up along the full length. And we're going to sew again with a zigzag stitch, only this time we're going to sew as close as we can to the straight edge of the elastic. And here's what it looks like once that bottom band elastic has been sewn on with the second pass from the inside and from the outside of the bra. You can see now we have the nice picot edge sticking out all along the edge. So next up, we can attach the underwire channeling down to the bra itself. And this will be the same no matter what options you're sewing up. So I like to do my first pass of this from the inside of the bra. I know that's a little bit different from what the directions say, but I find I get a better, more even, consistent stitching path if I do it from the inside of the bra. So what I want to do is push that underwire channeling down. I want to make sure that I have all of this fabric sort of pulled taut. I don't want to be sewing in any bags of fabric. And then I'm going to sew with a straight stitch as close as I can to this sort of outside edge along here. Now with the second pass of the underwire channeling sewn in, we can call that portion of the bra done.
This concludes the second video in the sew along for the Lanai wireless bra from LilypaDesigns. Links to the other videos in this series can be found in the description box below. I'll see you next time. Take care.